From the headquarters of the American Radio Relay League in Newington, Connecticut, this is ARRL Audio News for Friday, March 17th, 2017. This program is produced by the ARRL, the National Association for Amateur Radio, and features news highlights compiled from the ARRL letter, found on the web at arrl.org. I'm Sean Kutzko, KX9X.
And I'm your co-host, Carla Pereira.
In this week's report, ARRL's Executive Committee will meet this month in Denver.
ARRL weighs in on a new California driving while wireless statute.
And international crystal manufacturing is going out of business.
Those stories and others, plus Bruce Page, KK5DO with this week's satellite update, all coming up now.
Hi, I'm ARRL member Stu Turner, W0STU of Monument, Colorado, and you're listening to ARRL Audio News.
The ARRL Executive Committee will meet on March 25th in Denver, Colorado to tackle a wide-ranging agenda. ARRL President Rick Roderick, K5UR, will chair the session. The EC will hear a report on FCC and regulatory items. This includes a review of enforcement issues and concerns, as well as a status update on FCC-related items and filings, and on open items that have not received any FCC action since the January Board of Directors meeting. One FCC-related matter that is likely to come up for discussion is the status of the ARRL petition for rulemaking RM 11759 to make changes in the 80 and 75 meter band. In addition, ARRL is still waiting for the FCC to approve operational rules for the 2200 and 630 meter bands or finalize the allocation of the 2200 meter band. The EC is also expected to receive an update on the ARRL's January 12th petition for rulemaking to allocate a new secondary amateur band in the vicinity of 5 megahertz while keeping 4 of the current 5 60-meter channels and the 100-watt power limit. The FCC designated the League's petition as RM 11785. Comments on the League's petition are due on March 20th, and ARRL will file comments to bolster its assertions. The report to the EC will also address noteworthy antenna and RF interference cases. On the legislative front, the EC will get a status report on the Amateur Radio Parity Act of 2017, H.R. 555. The bill has passed the U.S. House, with Senate action still pending. The EC will also discuss the amateur radio implications of H.R. 588, Securing Access to Networks in Disasters Act. The EC will also review the status of the Amateur Auxiliary Study Ad Hoc Committee. Meetings have been held with the FCC concerning more effective FCC use of the volunteer resources of the Amateur Auxiliary, otherwise known as the Official Observers Program. The Executive Committee is tasked by the ARRL bylaws to address League matters between regular board meetings.
ARRL is recommending that amateur radio be specifically excluded from a California statute prohibiting the use of wireless communication devices while driving. ARRL Southwestern Division Vice Director Marty Wall, N6VI, is taking point on the effort to revise the statute, known by its legislative bill number AB 1785. It was signed into law last September and took effect on January 1st. ARRL has received a huge volume of inquiries and complaints about this statute in particular since its enactment. ARRL General Counsel Chris Imlay, W3KD, wrote in a letter to Wohl to provide guidance in amending the California statute. Imlay pointed out that the prior statute excluded amateur radio by definition. The new law, which completely replaced the earlier statute, never mentions amateur radio, but instead contains an open-ended definition of an electronic wireless communications device, the operation of which while driving is prohibited. According to the statute, this includes, but is not limited to, a broadband personal communication device, a specialized mobile radio device, a handheld device or laptop computer with mobile data access, a pager, or a two-way messaging device. Because of the not limited to language, such a device is whatever a law enforcement officer thinks might be included, and an amateur radio operator is not at all protected, Imlay wrote. Radio amateurs have regularly used mobile two-way radio systems for the past 70 years, Imlay said. ARRL is aware of no evidence that such operation contributes to driver inattention, he stressed. Imlay also cited a 2009 letter to ARRL from the National Safety Council, stating that there was no evidence using amateur radio while driving is a significant risk. ARRL urges California legislators to reconsider and amend AB 1785 to more narrowly define the class of devices included in the prohibition, or to include a specific exemption for amateur radio, Imlay wrote.
More than 40 South Florida amateur radio volunteers supported event and emergency communications on January 29th at the 15th running of the Miami Marathon and Half Marathon. Amateur radio has been a critical part of this major international event each year. The event has grown from 3,000 runners in 2003 to over 25,000. Operating from a mobile command unit at the finish area, 2 net control stations manage traffic from all of the radio amateurs deployed throughout the course. The command unit offers immediate access to police, fire, public safety, medical, and race officials. Hams at each of the 23 aid stations along the 26-mile course coordinate communication with aid station captains and public service officials to ensure a rapid and accurate flow of critical information to command, including information on injured runners, medical supply requests, traffic, weather, and other situations.
Online, via podcast, and on repeaters throughout North America, you're listening to ARRL Audio News.
Now, with this week's satellite update, here's Bruce Page, KK5DO.
Luciano, PY5LF, heard EO88 through FO29 the other day. After that, Clayton, W5PFG, was able to decode 2 frames of telemetry from EO88, also through FO29. He would have got more, except a QSO was going on at the same spot EO88 was transmitting. It is always fun when the downlink frequency of one satellite coincides with the uplink frequency of another, and they are within range to allow this to happen. Keep your calendars open. The Dayton Hamvention is right around the corner, and AMSAT will have a booth as usual and satellite demonstrations as well as informational sessions. AMSAT will also be at the Dallas HamCom a few weeks later, again with a booth, satellite demonstrations, and informational sessions. The AMSAT website is going through some changes. We're making it more user-friendly and adding more information. Visit amsat.org. This is Bruce Page, KK5DO, for the ARRL Audio News.
Amateur radio on the International Space Station reports it is one giant step closer to flying its new interoperable radio system to the International Space Station. Eventual plans call for installing a new JVC Kenwood radio system on the station as part of an overall approach that will allow greater interoperability between the Columbus module and the Russian service module. Lou McFadden, W5DID, and Carrie Bank, N6IZW, traveled to NASA Johnson Space Center in Houston in mid-February for preliminary testing of Bank's breadboard version of the ARRL multi-voltage power supply that's essential to the upgrade. They worked with Johnson engineers and electromagnetic compatibility lab personnel to put the specially built power supply through its paces, checking against U.S. and Russian space specifications for preliminary power quality and EMC tests. With positive test results in hand, ARRL now can move on to the next step, fabrication of prototype and flight units. The JSC engineers said the ARRL breadboard power supply was the first hardware to have passed all of the space agency's tests and complemented the ARRL team on its professional-level hardware development and design. Now that the testing of the breadboard unit has been completed, McFadden can purchase the necessary and pricey space-certified parts to fabricate the final prototype and flight power supplies. He and Bank expressed confidence that the prototype and flight units will pass the even more rigorous final testing with flying colors. To help support final fabrication and flight tests of the ARRL interoperable radio system, you can visit the ARRL website at arrl.org. Contributions are tax-deductible. Those contributing at least $100 will receive an ARRL Challenge coin.
Scouting's World Jamboree on the Air team has announced the theme for this fall's JOTA event, 60 Years Connecting Scouts. The 2017 theme recognizes the event's beginnings in 1957 and commemorates its growth in participation and in the expanding communication channels activated this coming October. In addition to amateur radio, those channels include internet-based channels and other internet-based options, including social media, ScoutLink, IRC chat services, Skype, and more. It also recognizes the goal of the event, connecting scouts so that they can engage in conversations with other scouts across town and around the world, said JOTA coordinator Jim Wilson, K5ND. This allows them to discover geographic and cultural differences and similarities. Plus, they are exposed to the technology that makes all this happen. The JOTA JOT logo contest is about to start. Plans for 2017 include a simplified registration system. According to the World JOTA JOT Report 2016, more than 1 million Scouters in 156 countries and at 33,000 plus locations took part in JOTA JOT last fall.
Several radio amateurs across the country were among those sponsoring World Association of Girl Scouts and Girl Guides Thinking Day on the Air events in February that enjoyed enthusiastic participation. Thinking Day, officially February 22nd, commemorates the birthday of Lord Robert Baden-Powell, the founder of the Scout and Guide movements, as well as that of his wife Olave, who was the first World Chief Guide. Talk about excitement, exhilaration, and satisfaction, said Skip Youngberg, K1KNR, an ARRL Life member who got involved in Thinking Day through his daughter Jill Gallus, KB1SWV. She enlisted his club, the Neshoba Valley Amateur Radio Club, to conduct an event in New Hampshire 3 years ago. This year, the NVARC set up in Shirley, Massachusetts, and in Raymond, New Hampshire. Thinking Day on the Air traces its heritage to radio scouter Les Mitchell, G3BHK, now Silent Key, who originated Jamboree on the Air in 1957 and initiated Thinking Day on the Air about 25 years ago, Youngberg said. On February 18th in Shirley, Youngberg and his NVARC compatriots introduced 41 scouts and 15 leaders to world time, phonetics, Morse code, and, perhaps most important, getting on the air. The next day, the NVARC crew packed up and did the same for a similar group in Raymond, where 26 scouts and 10 leaders honed their communications experience, Youngberg said. Youngberg says that few non-hams understand what amateur radio has to offer. Fortunately, Thinking Day on the Air is what you might call a self-defining special event, he said. Point the troop to available Thinking Day on the Air materials, offer support, and engage in a conversation that binds the event to something you and the Girl Scouts can reasonably and successfully accomplish.
Hi, I'm ARRL member Brad, Whiskey Foxtrot 7 Tango from Nashville, Tennessee, and you're listening to the ARRL Audio News.
Remote antenna tuners is the topic of the just-released episode of the ARRL The Doctor Is In podcast, sponsored by DX Engineering. ARRL The Doctor Is In is an informative discussion of all things technical. Listen on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, whenever and wherever you like. Every 2 weeks, your host, QST Editor-in-Chief Steve Ford, WB8IMY, and the doctor himself, Joel Hallis, W1ZR, will discuss a broad range of technical topics. You can also email your questions to doctor@arrl.org, and the doctor may answer them in a future podcast. Enjoy ARRL The Doctor Is In on Apple iTunes or by using your iPhone or iPad podcast app. You can also listen online at Blueberry or at Stitcher and through the free Stitcher app for iOS, Kindle, or Android devices.
And finally, International Crystal Manufacturing of Oklahoma City has announced that it will be going out of business, probably at the end of May. Royden Freeland Jr., son of the company's founder, posted a letter this week on the ICM website. We will be honoring all orders that we have already taken and will be able to fill a limited amount of new orders depending on raw materials available, Freeland said. We would like to thank you for your past business. International Crystal produces RF control devices, quartz crystals, oscillators, QCM crystals, filters, and precision crystals. Royden R. Freeland Sr. founded International Crystal in 1950, at first operating out of his garage. One of his first contracts was to produce crystals for Collins Radio. The elder Freeland and his wife died in a 1978 air crash, and his son took over the company, which expanded into the production of other electronics in the 1980s. In the 1990s, though, it sold off some of its equipment and distribution business to concentrate on its core enterprise, the manufacture of crystal and oscillator products. The announcement caught some manufacturers off guard, and they are seeking to source the products they had been buying from ICM, one of the remaining U.S.-based manufacturers of crystal products. Radio amateurs requiring crystals for projects or replacement parts for older equipment will now have to look elsewhere.
And that concludes ARRL Audio News for this week. Our thanks to all contributors to this week's report. ARRL Audio News is produced by the American Radio Relay League, the National Association for Amateur Radio. For more information on amateur radio or the ARRL, visit us on the web at arrl.org. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching for ARRL. If you have a question or comment about audio news, email us at audionews@arrl.org. This program is copyright 2017 ARRL, all rights reserved. Until next week, I'm Carla Pereira.
And I'm Sean Kutzko, KX9X 73, and thanks for listening.